Next proposed bond measure to acquire natural areas. This meeting is free and open to the public. Detail on these events and all others can be found in your weekly bulletin or online on the club's website. I'd like to welcome some new members to the City Club joining us today, and when I say their name, I'd ask them to stand and be recognized. June Carlson, Eric Chambers, Jack Isselman, Patty Greenfield, Noah Jarrett, Marge Kafori, Michelle Moore Hernandez, and Willie Smith. Welcome to City Club. Also with us today is the Grant High School Constitution team, right over here. They're on their way to the national championships in Washington, D.C., so good luck, gang. We're kicking off our annual membership drive, and I'd like to introduce Jake Okenberg to make a few statements about our membership drive. Jake is a member of our Board of Governors and chair of our membership committee. He's also a lead singer and pianist for his band, The Retrofits, and has been a member of the City Club since 2002. Jake?
Thanks, Doug. You may have seen the stickers on your seat or on the table, "Get a Fix on 2006. That's our slogan for kicking off our membership campaign that begins today and runs through our annual meeting on June 2nd, I believe. Our membership over the last year has continued to grow. It had stagnated for a couple of years, but over the last couple of years, it has continued to grow. And so first of all, I really want to thank all of you who have joined or encourage your friends to join. When you get those renewal notices in the mail, please send them back. We want you to stay here. And we love that you're a part of our family here at City Club. I do want to make a pitch for those of you who are not members, why you should join. 2006 is a fairly pivotal year. You'll hear this in the governor's speech. There are some key issues in this state. Truly at a crossroads. In our city, there are key issues. And City Club is truly at the forefront of dealing with many of those issues and bringing them to your attention and bringing those issues so that you can debate them and see for yourself what is key in our society today. In Portland, the Fire and Police Disability and Retirement Fund, education financing, on a statewide level, the future of our land use system, the future of our economy, early childhood care and education. There are important elections at all levels, from the governor's office to Portland City Council. And City Club will be there and has been there to hold the debates, hold the issue debates, release the research that'll help you understand what's coming before our city, our state, our region, our country, and our world. So I would make a pitch to you. If you are not a member, please join us today. And today, to kick off the campaign, the $25 new member processing fee, we're going to waive it if you sign up today. In the lobby, we'll have membership forms, and Margaret Eichman, our new development and membership director, will be there to say hello. And if you have any questions, please ask me or Margaret or any City Club members. And if you know friends who would like to join, encourage them to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jake. Our sponsors this quarter who make broadcast of City Club possible are CH2M Hill, Schwabe Williamson and Wyatt, and West Coast Bank. Would you join me in thanking our sponsors? To our program. The City Club is proud to host Gov.Ted Kulongoski's annual State of the State Address. The State of the State Address is an annual event in most American states. It's required by some state constitutions, it's tradition in others. But the point is the same. The governor of a state should report to the citizens on the current condition of the state. In most states, the governor stays inside the Capitol building and speaks to the legislature. Here in Oregon, our citizens expect a closer conversation with our elected officials. For that reason, the City Club has been a frequent forum for the governor's annual State of the State Address. We have a packed house here today at the Governor Hotel. But even more importantly, today's address will reach Oregonians across the state through our OPB broadcast. This means that today's address will be heard in Tillamook and Florence on the Oregon coast, in Pendleton and Burns in Eastern Oregon. Actually, with our web broadcast, Oregonians living all around the world can listen now. We're pleased to play our part in the Governor's annual report to the citizens of Oregon. Please join me in welcoming Governor Ted Kulongoski.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Doug, for your introduction and for once again making the City Club of Portland available to me as a forum for talking about our progress over the last 3 years and where I will lead Oregon from here. This is my 4th address to you since becoming governor. I like coming here because this hotel is part of Oregon's rich cultural landscape and a reminder that while the state of our economy is a tide that ebbs and flows, our state of mind about the greatness of Oregon never changes. This state of mind is about our livability and connection to the land. It is about our sense of independence. It is about our belief that communities matter and that individuals can make a difference. That is why pioneers traveled the Oregon Trail. They had a dream, and they knew the place to fulfill that dream was here. Much has changed in 2 centuries, but people are still drawn to Oregon as a place to start or start over, to find a better and more meaningful way to live, to welcome the future. This is the Oregon dream, and it is as clear, bold, and permanent as Crater Lake. So I'm not here to make the case that there is no better place to live than Oregon. We already know that. Today is about the state of the state, and that can be summed up in one word: progress. Progress is what every Oregon family hopes for every day. Teddy Roosevelt once said, "Progress is accomplished by the person who does things." And together we have done things that have improved the lives of thousands of Oregon families. So today I say to you, the heartbeat of our state is stronger and hope burns brighter. Oregon is back. But the progress we've made hasn't come without difficult choices. Let me take a moment and remind you of the state of our state 3 years ago when I took office. At that time, Oregon was mired in the worst economic slump in almost 30 years. In the tsunami of that recession, Oregon lost nearly 1/4 of its state revenue. Billions of dollars simply disappeared. We waded through 5 special sessions of the legislature trying to balance the ever-shrinking budget. Thousands of our citizens were losing their jobs, and Oregon's unemployment rate was over 8.5%, the highest of any state in the country. We were first in the nation in hunger, and first in the nation in cutbacks to public education and health care. Yes, when I took office, we made cuts to balance the budget. We had no other choice. These cuts were difficult. Some were heartbreaking. Everyone sacrificed, especially our state employees who made real personal sacrifices and helped us get through the crisis. Today, the crisis is over and the wind is at our backs, and we're moving forward and making progress, as I said earlier. Still, no one understands better than I do that Oregon's rising economic tide has not raised all boats. Many Oregonians feel great uncertainty and insecurity despite our growing economy. Although Oregon's unemployment rate is down to 5.7%, new jobs are being created and more people are back at work, Many of our fellow citizens are worried. Worried whether they will have a job next week, next month, or next year. Worried whether they will be able to get through the next medical crisis. Worried whether they'll be able to retire with a pension. And worried whether they will be able to see their children do better than they have done. I want to speak directly to everyone in Oregon who feels this sense of uncertainty and insecurity. You might be a mill worker whose plant has shut down. You might be a worker whose job has been shipped overseas. You might be a small business person whose health care costs are killing your bottom line. You might be a part-time employee who wants a full-time job. You might be a single parent trying to raise children on a minimum wage salary. To each of you, I say, the economic numbers say we're recovering, but you are more than a number to me. I will not rest. I will never be satisfied. I will not stop fighting until you stop worrying about your economic future. I recapped where we were 3 years ago. Now let me trace the path of our progress to building the Oregon dream. Together we've built 5 pillars of progress: economic prosperity, health care, public safety, environmental responsibility, and education. First, let me talk about jobs and growing the economy. The turnaround we've experienced didn't just happen on its own. Since 2003, we've reduced our unemployment rate more than twice as much as the rest of the country. Our job growth is now the 5th fastest in America. In the last 3 years, we've created more than 100,000 new jobs, and our non-farm payroll grew by more than 3%, double the national average. This job growth is in every region of the state and in every sector of our economy. We have more jobs in Oregon today than at any time in our history, and we're on target to add another 250,000 jobs over the next 10 years. Even manufacturing in Oregon, which took a terrible hit because so much of our manufacturing base is high technology, has regained almost half of the jobs it's lost. Clearly, we're doing things right. We are making progress. But the job numbers are only part of the story. In addition to making it easier for businesses to create jobs, we also invested in public works projects. In doing so, we improved our public infrastructure, made it more attractive for businesses to relocate or stay here, and even directly created more jobs. Investment in our public transportation infrastructure had been stymied in the Oregon legislature for 10 years when I took office. In 2003, we passed an unprecedented transportation plan to repair Oregon's roads and bridges. It was the largest single public works project in Oregon's history, creating almost 9,000 jobs. These are good jobs. They pay decent wages and allow people to educate their children, buy health insurance, and put something away for a rainy day, or maybe even retirement. Over the rest of this decade, my transportation plan will create an additional 5,000 jobs each year. There's more in the pipeline, too. Last year, we passed Connect Oregon, a landmark investment in our rail, port, and aviation infrastructure that will create over 1,500 new jobs. We also invested a record $500 million in capital construction at Oregon's community colleges and public universities, creating more than 8,000 additional construction jobs. But while jobs are the single most important determinant of economic progress, other things matter too. In the words of Franklin Roosevelt, the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have little. Here, too, we've made progress. In only 3 years, we've gone from being first in the nation in hunger to 19th. So when it comes to prosperity for our families, all of our families, there is no doubt that we're making progress. You can also see Oregon's progress in the development of high technology, where we are now a world leader. Intel is our largest private employer and develops more patents from its operations in Oregon than in any other Intel facility in the world. In addition, Oregon is consistently among the top 10 states for being awarded patents. But high technology is only the beginning. On one measure of economic leadership after another, Oregon is moving up the charts. Last year, the total value of Oregon exports was the highest in the state's history. Hollywood is once again interested in making films in Oregon because of the new incentive programs we created. During the recession, we protected Oregon's cultural legacy. Today, arts and culture are thriving and are a critical asset to our economy. 2005 was a banner year for tourism in Oregon. Tourism added $7.5 billion to our economy, an increase of more than 7% in 1 year. These are just some of the many signs of Oregon's economic progress that justify my optimism and my long-held belief in the power of hope. Our economy is rebounding. Oregon businesses are hiring and expanding. Jobs are coming back. While we're adding jobs and our economy is recovering, healthcare remains an overriding concern for families and businesses. Quality healthcare is a basic necessity, every bit as essential as food and housing. Yet, every day, thousands of Oregonians, many with full-time jobs or a career history decades long, are forced to go without needed health care. This is an issue that affects every Oregonian. Over the past 3 years, I've been committed to providing access to health care, especially for children and seniors. We've created a children's group insurance plan, making health insurance coverage more affordable for many small employers by allowing them to pool together their purchasing power. We increased the number of low-income families eligible for state and federal children's health care programs. We expanded Oregon school-based health centers to 5 more counties, increasing the number of children who receive health care through this program to 25,000. We created the Oregon Prescription Drug Program, which makes cheaper prescription drugs available to older, low-income Oregonians. And last month, we took emergency action to address the problems created by the federal government's prescription drug program, which had denied prescription drug coverage to nearly 10,000 Oregon seniors. There's more that we have to do to make health care affordable, but we have made progress, and thousands of Oregon families benefit from that progress every day. While we're expanding the availability of legal drugs, we're also fighting Oregon's most dangerous illegal drug, meth. Last year, I led the effort to make sure Oregon had the toughest anti-meth laws in the country. Other states are now following our lead. Recently, a UCLA researcher said that Oregon is 5 to 7 years ahead of fighting meth in California. The days when meth users could simply walk into an Oregon drugstore and purchase the main ingredient of meth right off the shelf are over. Today, the number of small meth labs in Oregon, the kind that are set up in basements and threaten children in our neighborhoods, have been cut by over 70%. So when meth traffickers are hiding in basements, whether they're in basements or outside our nation's borders, we will not stop the relentless pursuit of them. The final victory against meth in Oregon has yet to be won. but I've been more aggressive in fighting meth than any governor in America. And I want each and every one of you to know that is not going to change. President Kennedy once said, "Our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education." The human mind is our fundamental resource. That means everything we accomplish and everything we can accomplish starts with the quality of our education system. Creating a high-quality education system takes more than having enough resources. But let's be honest with each other. It can't be done without enough resources. Since I've been governor, we've put more general fund money in Head Start and now serve 60% of eligible 3- and 4-year-olds. Last year, we increased the K-12 budget by 8%. And we're making it easier for high school juniors and seniors to take community college courses and for post-secondary students to transfer credits from one Oregon school to another. But transferring those credits will be impossible if Oregon students are being priced out of the educational marketplace. That's why I doubled the amount of money available to students to offset their tuition expenses. At the same time, we capped community college and university tuition at 3%. Every, and I mean every, graduate from an Oregon high school who qualifies on the basis of need and wants to go to an Oregon community college or university will get financial help from the state. Also, and this is a change, this coming year, part-time students will be eligible for the state tuition grant. I will have more to say about our educational system in a few moments. But first, let me state what everyone in Oregon believes. Building the Oregon dream also means preserving for future generations the abundance and beauty of our great state. And that is why I will keep leading this state in the direction of more protection for our environment, not less. I made restoring the Willamette River my #1 priority for the environment. I directed the state motor pool to increase the use of biodiesel and ethanol and to purchase more hybrid vehicles. I demanded new restrictions on tailpipe emissions, creating a clean car corridor along the entire West Coast. And I will never, I repeat, never allow Oregon to become a federally run laboratory for dangerous policies that turn back the clock on our environmental legacy. My message to the federal administration is this: you're wrong on salmon recovery. You're wrong on the roadless areas. You're wrong on the sale of public land. You're wrong on global warming. You're wrong on offshore drilling on the outer continental shelf, and for good measure. You're wrong that conservation is nothing more than a personal virtue. We don't need more drilling and extraction in environmentally sensitive areas. We need alternative renewable energy, tougher fuel efficiency standards, and an Oregon ocean conservation strategy that protects and preserves Oregon's coast to the edge of the outer continental shelf, a strategy that sustains, not diminishes, our coastal communities. Conservation is the most cost-effective way to cut greenhouse gases, cut our dependence on foreign oil, and cut the cost of doing business. It is not a personal virtue. It is a national necessity. Now I want to talk to you about the future and where I will lead Oregon over the next 5 years. Why do I believe so strongly that creating living wage jobs is essential to strengthening the Oregon dream? Because it's personal to me. I know from my days as a steel worker that with a job comes opportunity, and opportunity is what my life has always been about. Every day, I count my blessings for the opportunities I've been given. Catholic nuns in a boys' home raised me, and I've heard more times in my life some people say he's a down-on-his-luck kid. But in 3 respects, I was luckier than I or almost anyone else realized. First, the nuns who raised me taught me 3 valuable lessons. Don't be judgmental of others. Treat people with dignity and respect. And never, never forget where you came from. Second, the bar was set pretty low for me. Growing up, I don't remember anyone ever saying to me, "Teddy, I expect great things out of you." And third, a handful of adults, some inspired teachers, and yes, the GI Bill, opened doors for me. Doors I couldn't have opened by myself. I didn't make it on my own. No one does. But I wasn't handed success either. I was handed the opportunity for success, and with it, the chance to go as far as my talent and drive would take me. I want the opportunity that was given to me to be given to every Oregon child. That means no matter where an Oregon child comes from, he or she will have the same opportunity to walk up and toe the same starting line and run the same race as everyone else. Put another way, where Oregon kids finish up is up to them. They have to earn what they achieve. But where they begin is up to us. Let me repeat what I said a minute ago. No one makes it alone. We need to lift each other. And when we're faced with difficult challenges, we need to find solutions that cross party lines, cross regional boundaries, and cross generations. That's what I have done since becoming governor and will continue to do. 3 years ago, nothing was more important than getting our economy back on track. Without a strong and growing economy, we have no way to fund the vital services that the people of Oregon want and deserve. When state revenues dropped from $12 billion to $9 billion, there were only 2 ways to replace that revenue: taxes, to which a majority of the citizens on 2 separate occasions during my administration said no, or economic growth and job creation, which are now breathing life into our economy and increasing state revenues. We're not out of the woods yet. Revenue is still tight, and many critical public services are still underfunded. But because thousands more Oregonians are working and thousands more Oregon businesses have a healthy bottom line, we have the ability to restore vital services, not just until the next recession, but permanently. Let me start with education. I mentioned the opportunities I've been given in life. None was more important than education. From teachers in grade school to professors in law school, I'm standing in front of you because they stood behind me. Now it is our turn to create an education system that moves Oregonians seamlessly from pre-K Head Start to K through 12 to post-secondary institutions to workforce training and retraining. I've called this continuum the education enterprise. But since I'm asking for big changes in the way we manage and fund education in Oregon, let me offer another way to think about my plans for education. Remember with me when you were in school and we were given story problems in arithmetic class. Here's a problem. You go to Union Station and you see 5 railroad cars that say education. Each car has its own budget, its own mission, its own advocacy groups, its own engineer, its own data and record keeping, and its own track. And to make matters worse, the railroad car marked K through 12 comes in 198 separate pieces, just like the 198 separate school districts in Oregon. The question is this any way to run a railroad? You and I know the answer is no. The rail cars need to be coupled together, pulled by a powerful engine and put on one track heading toward one destination. The same is true for education in Oregon. The parts of the system need to be linked, given the same mission, budgeted and managed as one enterprise, and pulled with strength and stability by a smart budget plan and the powerful engine of economic growth. The powerful engine of economic growth is here. What's been missing is the smart budget plan. That's why in January, I will propose to the legislature a new plan for funding education. Under my plan, 61% of the general fund will be dedicated to pre-K, K through 12, and post-secondary education every biennium. And pre-K, K through 12 community colleges and universities will each be guaranteed a minimum 10% increase in funding every biennium. My plan also includes the creation of a stability fund, so we have money put aside the next time we're hit with a recession. Let me explain in hard dollars what the 10% commitment means for teachers, parents, and children. In the current biennium, the state's direct dollar investment in K through 12 is $5,318 million. In the 07-09 biennium, that 10% investment will grow to $5,850 million. This is a $1 billion increase in K through 12 state funding since I became governor. In other words, for the first time, starting next year, teachers and administrators will be able to plan for the future with stability and a clear picture for their long-term funding. If my education enterprise funding plan is adopted by the legislature, we will once again be above the national average for per-student funding at the end of the 07-09 biennium. We've never had a plan that looks at education funding over the long term. Now we will. If the legislature adopts my plan and stops budgeting the way we currently do by bouncing from year to year with no clear idea of what the bottom line is, the disaster of the 5 special sessions will be a thing of the past. And yes, the nightmare of lost school days, dropped programs, bulging classrooms, and national ridicule will be over forever. Nobody wants adequate and stable funding for our public schools more than I do. But if we only focus on K through 12, we'll end up repairing the railroad tracks immediately ahead of us while ignoring the 2 broken trestles down the track and around the bend. The first trestle is post-secondary education. I want our public and private universities and our community colleges to compete with any in the country. That's how we will keep our smartest young people in Oregon and build a dynamic economy that produces the best and sells the most. So we have to keep investing in post-secondary education through public-private partnerships, new research facilities, and a permanent endowment to help Oregon students cover the cost of their education. and, most importantly, to make up for the decades-long disinvestments in higher education in Oregon. The second tussle that we face is the dangerous mismatch between the outdated skills many Oregon workers possess and the updated skills many Oregon employers are looking for. Repairing the skills gap is the only way we will build the Oregon dream, because it is the only way we can keep our best young minds and our strongest young hands in Oregon, while creating family wage jobs and long-term economic growth. Remember this: less than 1/3 of Oregonians have a 4-year degree or higher, and many Oregon high school students are not looking for a college degree. What they want is a marketable skill that will lead to a high-wage job. I can't say this enough. To keep Oregon competitive in the global economy, we must have engineers and electricians, scientists and technicians, inventors and builders. That is why with help from our labor and business partners, I created Oregon's first manufacturing workforce strategy and invested $1 million to get the strategy off the ground. Our focus is to provide Oregonians with the skills they need to find the jobs they want. The issue is not going away, and neither is my determination to align the job goals of our workers with the job opportunities of tomorrow. Now let me tell you about an issue that is going away, because we're going to resolve it: uninsured children. Today, more than 117,000 Oregon children under the age of 19 do not have health insurance. That is unacceptable to you, and it is unacceptable to me. Uninsured children are 3 times more likely to use expensive emergency room care and are far less likely to visit a primary care physician. To make matters worse, almost half of Oregon's 117,000 uninsured children are eligible for publicly funded health care programs, but they're not enrolled. My Healthy Kids plan is going to change all of this. The plan will be guided by these fundamentals. All Oregon children are eligible for coverage under the Healthy Kids plan, which will include dental and mental health benefits. Working families who can't afford insurance will either be eligible or will be able to buy low-cost coverage for their kids. I will encourage employers who already cover the children of their workers to continue that coverage. But regardless, nothing will alter this fact. If you're the parent of uninsured children, you will soon have one less thing to worry about, because your children will be insured under my Healthy Kids plan. Now let's talk about cost. The total cost of covering 117,000 children will be about $110 million for the state. But with this spending, we leverage some additional $200 million from the federal government. Where will this money come from? I will propose to the legislature a cigarette tax increase to cover the state's share of the new Healthy Kids plan. Insuring all children is a critical first step toward reducing the number of uninsured Oregonians, but this is not the last step. Over the next year, at my direction, various healthcare agencies will do research and make recommendations for creating an affordable and sustainable healthcare system for all Oregonians. Although I believe that the healthcare decisions coming from our federal partner are economically short-sighted and many times just plain wrong, they will not stop me from ensuring that all of our kids have access to health care, or from providing health care for every working Oregonian. Now let me speak on one last issue, which is critically important to me, to you, and to the state of Oregon. In the President's State of the Union address, he said our nation is addicted to foreign oil. He's right. Unfortunately, he had little to say about how his administration intends to break this addiction. I refuse to wait. In Oregon, we're going to move ahead with reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, increasing energy efficiency, and cutting greenhouse gases. Global warming is not junk science. Junk science is the denial of global warming. Here in Oregon, we have already taken major steps to combat global warming and develop renewable energy sources. I call this intelligent redesign. I've asked the Department of Environmental Quality to identify steps that we can take to improve our quality and visibility of our air in the Columbia Gorge. I'm going to press the private sector to do their part. And next month, I'll be meeting with Washington Governor Gregoire to come up with bi-state solutions to protecting our common airshed. I will also propose a major energy independence package to the next legislature. Last year, the legislature refused to adopt my proposal to jumpstart biodiesel, ethanol, and forest biomass markets in Oregon. This cannot happen again. The legislature must join me in making Oregon a world leader in alternative fuels. That includes passage of a renewable portfolio standard that will result in a 25% of our energy coming from renewable resources by 2025. At the same time, I will propose new credits and incentives to encourage investment in alternative and renewable energy projects. If we cannot convince the federal administration of the value of an alternative and renewable energy portfolio standard as part of a national policy for energy independence for America, Oregons will do what we have always done: roll up our sleeves, do it ourselves, and be a beacon for the rest of the country. I began my remarks by saying that the state of our state can be summed up with the word progress, and by reminding you that the Oregon dream of livability in connection to the land is as permanent as Crater Lake. These are not separate ideas. The Oregon dream is here to stay, but so is our obligation to make progress on that dream. We can do that by recognizing we hold Oregon's progress in our hands and accepting our moral responsibility to give children, workers, and families a helping hand. I'm not talking about pulling everyone to the top of the ladder. I'm talking about a hand, an opportunity to get on the ladder. That means more progress toward investing in the education enterprise, training young workers and retraining older workers, access to affordable health care and prescription drugs, safe neighborhoods for our children, and a healthy environment. This is how we will strengthen the Oregon dream, by continuing to make progress and move forward while preserving the legacy of independence that this state has always believed in, and our belief in respecting diversity, supporting communities, and acknowledging that individuals can make a difference. And most of all, raising our children to have greater opportunity than we had. That may no longer be the American dream, but I promise you this: it is my dream and will forever be the Oregon dream. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless Oregon. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll now open the floor for questions. Questions are a privilege for City Club members only, but you could join on your way out if you'd like. Would like to keep questions to 30 seconds or less, and please be sure that they are questions. Our first question will come from our board host, Carla Kelly. Carla is a member of our Board of Governors and has served as General Counsel for the Port of Portland since 2002. And more importantly, to the City Club, Carla chairs our program committee, which selects the topics for our Friday programs. Carla?
Thank you. Governor Kulongoski, I want to thank you so much on behalf of the City Club and the Program Committee for choosing this venue for your State of the State address. We really appreciate it. My question has to do with a recent court decision. The Supreme Court's decision on ballot measure 37 was expected by many in the legal community, but can you talk a little about what you think this means for our state's land use community? Is Oregon's much praised land use system destined for extinction, or is this more of a course correction?
The latter is the case. It's a course correction. Let me, for a moment, just talk to you about a little history. I remembered when I was on the staff in 1973 when Senate Bill 100 was passed, and there was a interesting conversation inside the conference room with Governor McCall and Senator McPherson and L.B. Day, who I was in the room because of him. It was about an issue that was around our land use system that the governor actually recognized, and it was an issue called compensatory zoning. And he recognized the increase, the appreciation, and the downsizing of the plan, and there was a bill actually introduced in the legislature along with Senate Bill 100, which attempted to deal with this issue. That measure did not pass, but Senate Bill 100 did, and interestingly enough, the next session when I showed up in Salem as a representative, I introduced the compensatory zoning bill. This issue has been out there for 30 years. One of the things that I think that has happened with the system and why I believe it's a mid-course correction. I remember the first campaign right after Senate Bill 100 passed, and you may remember it as well as I did. There was an attempt to put it on, it was on the ballot to defeat it and to repeal it. And the fact is that what we said of why we wanted to keep the law was about our values, about who we are as Oregonians. And if you watch what has happened over the last 30 years, the program is very seldom ever talked about in values, about who we are. It's about process. It's about meetings and public notices and all of this stuff. And what we've lost sight of is we have to continually make the case to the Oregon people of the value of this program, because you can look at the migration to Oregon since 1985, and a lot of people here have no idea who Tom McCall ever was. But we believe that it's so ingrained in us that everybody just assumes they understand this, and they don't. And it is why I put together, when I first became governor, the task force, which we now call the Big Look, the long-term review, the 30-year review of our land use system. The legislature didn't approve it the first session. They did this last time, and we just have appointed the members, and it will be a commission that will look over the next 3 or 4 years at a variety of issues in our land use system. Let me speak to you specifically, though, about Measure 37 and where I think this is going to go. I think that you, first of all, and I've had a group working, which I chair, a group of planners and people from around Oregon that have been working on the Measure 37 issue, and I break it down into two pieces. The first piece I am not dealing with in the group I'm working with because there are other interests involved, which I'm not sure that I can find an easy solution for them. And it is, one, developers, large developers who want to get into farm and forest lands and build large subdivisions. Second is the timber industry itself. For a variety of reasons, there are some timber owners who believe that they need the flexibility, that they cut the trees, that they can actually sell the land for development. And I think both of those positions are wrong. The piece that has been successful on the ballot is a very simple issue of fairness. And the fairness is around three issues, I've concluded. One, it's the individual who buys a piece of property because they wanted to build a home on it, and now they find out they can't build it, and the general public believes that is unfair. Secondly, is the individual who bought the piece of property, has his home on it, but he wanted his child, his son, to be able to build a house and live next to him. And the public believes that's unfair. And the third is a broader issue, and it's a more difficult one, but it's the individual who bought a piece of property who wanted to hold it for retirement and to build his house on it. And the public has seen that their inability to do that is unfair. We're trying to address those three issues. The issue ultimately will be our ability through the big look, and to each of us who believe in this program so strongly, is to be able to communicate to the public the values of why we do this. This isn't just about process. This isn't just about who all gets the notices. That's important. As a lawyer, I understand process. But I have to tell you, it is about us and why this makes Oregon a better place for all of us. I can tell you this, it makes it better for us as we live together. It is tremendously important to our economy because one of the reasons why businesses look to Oregon is it is because of our land use system. Businesses need certainty and predictability. And this is what this system gives them. So it is in our long-term interest to preserve this program and to see that it continues.
Chris Almond, City Council member. My question, you in a recent Oregonian interview had mentioned that you believe that the income that comes from, the revenues that come from our income tax derived tax structure are insufficient for what the level of services our citizens want. However, over 50 cents of the dollar goes uncollected by virtue of about 350 tax expenditures. And in the year 2000, that allowed 26 corporations with over $1 million of taxable revenue to pay the $10 corporate minimum tax. What can you do with your leadership to assure us in a review process of these 350 and growing expenditures that investment is more worthy than direct services?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, and I'm going to talk about the expenditure issue at the end, but I want to talk to you, and it's very important that we all understand the difficulty with a single source funding that Oregon has for its state government off of the income tax. First of all, it shouldn't be lost on anybody here that when the economy's going well, and since 70% plus of our state revenue comes from the income tax, the state revenues actually do very, very well. And statistically, it's showing that because between 1995 and 2001, the state revenues actually grew 20% plus per biennium. So when the economy's well, we do well, and we have the ability to provide the services. The danger for us is what happened in 2001 and 2003. It is the tremendous instability in the tax structure for governmental services, because when you lose 25 or 21% of your general fund, you have to cut services. The problem with the income tax is it's unstable as a permanent funding source for government. And we have to have a discussion about how we do that. Now, it's all been around before, around K through 12. I'm telling you, the issue isn't the mechanics of this. It is how do we convince the public that it is in their interest, their children's interest, and the future of this state to make a change. Ultimately, to bring more stability, particularly since Oregon is now in a global economy. You can't afford to lose 21 to 25% of your general fund and cut schools, health care, every essential program of government. We have to start looking at a more stable source to do that. But the challenge for us is to have the public understand why it's in their interest to make that change. Part of that discussion is the issue you ask about tax expenditures. Now look, tax expenditures are a public policy decision that the legislature makes trying to achieve a particular objective. The question has been, for some time, is whether a lot of the tax credits that are in the code right now here in Oregon are actually outdated. Whether the social policy objective you were trying to achieve is actually something that we're trying to do today. And I think that that is always an ongoing discussion. Every legislative session, I should say that every 2 years, there is a commission that looks at all of this and presents a report to the legislature. In fact, in 2003, for 5 to 6 months of the session, the tax proposal that actually became Measure 30 actually was structured around the tax expenditure issue. The legislature chose to go away from that approach and went with a direct income tax surcharge. And I still believe that above a large overall structure is a time to look at the tax expenditure issue, because you are correct. I do think that it's part of a larger restructuring of Oregon's tax structure to be able to provide stability, equity as to in the terms of who pays and how much, and to the issue of adequacy.
My name is Gavin White. I'm a City Club member. I'm also the chair of the Multnomah County Democratic Party. Thank you, Governor, for coming to address us today. If re-elected, what will you do to lead our state if Oregonians also elect another uncooperative legislature?
Do you know, one of the things about this process, because I must tell you, it amazes me. I don't know how many of you have read Ellis's book called Founding Brothers on the early founders of the country with Madison and Jefferson, Burr, and Hamilton, and all these people, or if you've read Doris Kearns Goodwin's book on the issues of the President's cabinet, President Lincoln's cabinet. I just finished the book. I'm going to tell you, politics today is kid stuff compared to the way these people live. So I want you to know something. I actually think controversy, debate, passion, conflict is good for American democracy. I am one who believes that the minority's ability to participate and be part of the process lends credibility to the majority. I think we need to understand that we need the exchange of ideas. For God's sake, if this was a faculty senate, and I know there are university people out here, what would you think if I walked into the faculty senate and said to you, listen, I'm tired of all this conflict you people argue about all the time. I don't want anybody to say anything that hurts anybody's feelings. I don't want you to talk about anything that's controversial. And for God's sake, whatever you do, don't raise your voice. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's part of the process. Now, what the problem is the state is a microcosm of what is playing out in Washington, D.C. and the United States Congress. The problem in my mind, and I'm going to speak to you as a Democrat, why you're having this debate here in Oregon about open primaries and nonpartisanship and all that is because the parties don't speak to the issues that the public is generally concerned about. And I'm going to tell you, my party My party is actually probably ahead of the other one in this regard, because all this party is that I belong to now is a series of disparate interest groups on a continuum, all wanting to be heard at the same time. And I'm going to tell you something. When I travel this state and I talk to the people of Oregon and I ask them, what do you worry about when you go home at night? You want me to tell you something? No one has ever said to me, Governor, I go back and I worry about abortion or gay rights or the ESA. You know what they tell me? They care about their job. They want to know whether their kids are going to do any better than they did. And that's what the Democratic Party should talk about. That's what I talk about, and that's why I'm a great Democrat. I care about the working people of this country. And I'll really tell you what I think in a minute.
Governor Kulongoski, I'm Chris Rich, the chair of the Oregon Business Association Environment and Economic Development Committee and a City Club member. Many of us today welcome your call for independent energy strategy as well as legislation to get renewable fuels part of Oregon's leadership again. You have often said that environment and economic development do not need to be mutually exclusive concepts, but that they can and must go hand in hand. My question to you is, will you fully commit to making this legislative strategy for renewable fuels part of your economic development strategy in the future, both for the Willamette Valley and rural Oregon?
Yes, it's easy for me to say, because what you said that I have said before, I truly believe. Do you know, Oregon is already, as new clusters, we've always had these economic clusters currently around forest products, agriculture. We now have high tech, we have clothing, apparel, I can go down the line. We're trying to create new ones. We're trying the ONAMI, Oregon Nanoscience and Microtechnologies Institute, that is a partnership or collaboration with Oregon State, Oregon, and PSU and the National Lab over in Richland, Washington, and the whole idea of open source development lab here, the Linux system. The next one that is coming is the very issue, because we are starting to get a cluster of companies around the issue of alternative and renewable resources. One of the concerns I have, and I told the new president of Scottish Power when he was here, that his PPM company, that is the wind generation, I want the company to stay headquartered here in Oregon, and I'm very interested in keeping that company here, because I think it's part of Oregon's future. I think it's a tremendous economic asset to this state to commit to a portfolio standard of 25% of our renewables by 2025, of our energy by 2025. I actually think it is an economic asset, because we will provide more jobs. Businesses will find it beneficial to them in terms of their bottom line. And I think it improves the quality of our lives through our airshed and our general environment. So I am committed to doing this all over the state. Biomass, I've been down in Lakeview. I've talked to them. I've talked to Alan Ford at Roseburg. I've talked to the Warm Springs tribe. We are going to move forward on this agenda. It is a piece of Oregon's future, a very important piece of it.
I'm sorry, Tom, we've come to the end of our time. I want to thank the governor for addressing us today, and we're adjourned.
Thank you.